Hi everyone, and welcome to this preview of the final round of the Lifestream's Final Fantasy music ranking event. Today I'm joined by JasonTandro.
Howdy hey.
Kuroto.
Hello.
Lex.
Hi there.
And my name's Flintlock, the Lifestream's community manager. If you've been visiting our forum or following us on social media, you'll have seen that we've been running a massive music event for the past month or so, starting from 280 Final Fantasy songs, which we've now narrowed down to a final 32. They'll be going head-to-head in a knockout bracket until we've determined which one is our community's favourite. So, since the first polls have just gone up yesterday, I thought we could just get together for a little chat, have a look at the first round matchups, and then talk about our hopes and predictions for the rest of the tournament. So, how have you guys been finding the event so far?
It's been fantastic. I've loved every second of it because you're talking about music, and that's a bit of an obsession of mine, as everyone knows. I think you've handled it about the best way you could possibly handle trying to narrow down an insane number of incredibly good songs down to a bracket like this, and I'm happy with all the entries that made it into the final 32, even if some kind of came out of left field. But I think as far as the way the proceeding is going, I mean, it's getting tough now because we're picking our favorite children, essentially, and that's about the best you can hope for, is that, seeing what happens as far as which ones rate higher than others. So I've been loving it a lot. It's great.
Glad to hear that. Which songs have surprised you by being in the top 32?
A few of the ones that I wouldn't have put in my personal top 32, but the crowds kind of voted for them. Roses of May, I love that song, but I wouldn't call it my top 30. Battle with an Esper is okay. I generally am kind of iffy about the 12 soundtrack. And everything else makes sense. I mean, everything else is kind of obviously there for a very good reason. But those two in particular, and I guess Vamos a la Flamenco from 9 is interesting.
Lex, you were saying earlier today that you thought Esper Battle was going to be crushed by Aerith's theme.
I'm really surprised that even made it into the final 32, to be honest. I'm glad it did, because it's one of my favourite tracks from Final Fantasy 12. I
think it's the only track from Final Fantasy 12 in our top 32.
Yeah, as I look at it, I'm seeing that as well. But I would bet my life that Aerith's theme's going to crush it. For sure. It's Aerith's theme. And it's a shame because I know Aerith's theme's so iconic, but I just don't think it's that awesome a track, to be honest. If you isolate it and remove your memories from it, it's not that good. It's a nice song, it's just not amazing, it's not brilliant. I don't think it holds up against a lot of the other ones. So I would really like to see it beat. Because I know did we not have a music competition years ago, similar to this but a lot smaller, and Aerith's theme won.
That was probably before I became the community manager.
Yeah.
Kuroto, has anything caught your eye, taken you by surprise in the final 32?
Well, not so many, but I'm surprised of some of the Final Fantasy VII songs that made it into the list, like Anxiety and Words Drowned by Fireworks, for example. And I have to say I'm also surprised with the Final Fantasy XII pick, the fight with Espers, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I was going to say that there was a definite Final Fantasy VII bias in the composition of this final 32. I think we ended up with 12 songs from Final Fantasy VII alone, whereas many games were not represented at all. Something that I was complaining about a little bit on the forums.
I know, me too.
But we are a Final Fantasy VII site, so perhaps that's to be expected.
Yeah, that bias is going to exist for sure, I think.
And speaking of Final Fantasy VII songs, let's start looking at the first round matchups. And the very first one that went up yesterday was Libri Fatali from Final Fantasy VIII against Opening Bombing Mission from Final Fantasy VII.
Boo!
Which one are you booing?
The matchup. I'm booing the matchup because I posted quite extensively about the fact that is it not Liberate Fatale? I seem to be so Liberate Fatale or Liberi Fatale.
It is Liberi Fatale.
I did not know that. I've called it Liberate Fatale my whole life. So that song, we were all discussing that, and obviously that is Bam 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 the whole way through. You called it exhausting, which I agree with, but that's because it's so epic. And it's a good matchup because they're both opening themes. It's an annoying matchup because I feel like Liberi Fatale is better, but I prefer listening to opening Bombing Mission, so I was like, I wanted Bombing Mission to last a little longer.
This is just you and your objective good versus subjective good thing again, isn't it?
Yes! But it's true. I mean, everyone knows, sometimes that when you like something, it's not necessarily for objective reasons. You like it because it's in a style that you yourself enjoy and some others don't, and that's the way I feel about this matchup, and it's why I voted for Opening Bombing Mission, because it has peaks and flows, and I enjoy a song better when it kind of calms down a bit and then has a slow build. But I feel like Liberi Fatale is fantastic. The whole way through, it's a bit of a masterpiece, and up against the original Opening Bombing Mission, it just is going to smash it, and it should. But I voted for Opening Bombing Mission because if I was to pick one to sit down and listen to, it's Opening Bombing Mission.
I'd still just about go for Liberi Fatale.
I'm voting for Liberi Fatale just because I think it's got the better wow factor. I mean, it's not meant to be the entirety of the game. It's meant to be the first movement of the symphony that is the game, and it was my second Final Fantasy, and it blew me away, and that's why I gave it. It's mostly rose-colored goggles, but I think that is enough to vote for.
I'm voting. Oh well, I voted for Liberi Fatale as well, and for me, it's just actually I didn't really enjoy it that much before, like the competition, which is funny because now I absolutely love it. I think it's really great, and I just really prefer it to Opening Bombing Mission because I feel like Opening Bombing Mission, like it has a great beginning and then it kind of slows down and then it picks up again like later, but just Liberi Fatale is good from the start to the end, and that's why I voted for that one.
All right, well, with that said, let's move on to the second matchup, which was Birth of a God against The Darkness of Eternity, which is the Trance Kuja battle theme from Final Fantasy IX.
I was actually really surprised about this. Like, I was thinking that, like, Birth of God will take this one, but apparently it's not gonna take it. And because I feel like both of the songs are really similar to their style, but, I'm still not quite sure which one I'm gonna vote for, but I'm not unhappy about The Darkness of Eternity really doing really well, because it is a great song.
Yeah, at the moment, The Darkness of Eternity is leading Birth of a God by quite a considerable margin.
Which sucks.
I know you're not happy about that, Lex.
Well, I seem to be the only person on the board that likes Birth of a God anymore, so that's fine. I'll just sit in my corner enjoying Birth of a God.
You know that's not true.
You're not the only one.
I like it, but I feel like as far as what is the better representation of the character, for one thing, I think One Winged Angel better represents Sephiroth, but more importantly, I think Darkness of Eternity is dripping with Kuja. And somebody pointed out that Birth of a God actually plays Sephiroth's leitmotif, but even so, I feel like the style is a bit too random.
But it's like crazy, and I don't know, I love Birth of a God because it's just nuts. And you start this battle and it's like, wow, this song is like unlike anything else that's played in the game, and it's just so weird.
One thing I said on the forum about The Darkness of Eternity and the reason why I'm voting for it is that I really love the percussion. Just pretty much in general, when I'm listening to any rock song, the percussion is the thing that really sticks in my mind, and that song has some of the best in any rock song in the Final Fantasy game, I think. But I do like Birth of a God as well. Let's move on to Blinded by Light from Final Fantasy XIII against Roses of May from Final Fantasy IX. And as Kuroto already mentioned earlier, Roses of May is doing perhaps surprisingly well in the current poll. It's almost neck and neck. In fact, it's leading, according to my latest refresh. It's leading Blinded by Light by one vote.
That's impressive. I really did not anticipate that putting up as much of a fight because, like, Blinded by Light was one of the 6 or 7 really, really good tracks in the 13 soundtrack, and as far as a battle theme goes, it's outstanding. Roses of May is nice, but I honestly didn't expect it to put up this much of a fight.
I think half the reason Roses of May is doing so well is because the theme is woven into so many of the tracks in Final Fantasy IX, and when people hear the tune, they don't think of that one song, they think of all the tracks that contain it, and all of them are good. That is the way I think about it anyway. And also the moments where so I voted for Roses of May, and the moments where that plays, and I love 13, but the moments where that play in the game just stick out to me in my head. And also, have you guys heard Kate the Great 19's vocal version of it? Because it's immense.
Is that the one you linked to on the Livestream forums earlier today?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, after I listened to Blinded by Light and then Roses of May in succession, I was quite impressed by the simplicity of Roses of May, because Blinded by Light is a very intense song, but I just think if I was to listen to them individually without direct comparison, then I would pick Blinded by Light every time, because it's just a much more exciting song for me.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I mean, I think this one is one of the most difficult balls in this round of 32, and I also voted Blinded by Light because I just think it is more exciting, and I just like listening to it more than Roses of May, even though Roses of May is a really beautiful piece on its own as well.
Indeed. But let's move on to main theme of Final Fantasy IV against One-Winged Angel, and I know that we've got at least one champion of main theme of Final Fantasy IV among us.
Wow. It was that I feel sorry, because I know like the main theme of Final Fantasy IV is an amazingly beautiful piece, especially the somebody shared the Celtic version, Celtic Moon version, which was amazing. That was excellent. You have good taste.
Thank you.
But again, it's One-Winged Angel. It's impossible to compare the two as far as which one had a bigger impact on the series, which one is the better known piece, which one is, frankly, to be maybe a bit subjective here, but the better written piece. I mean, again, it's trouncing the main theme of Final Fantasy IV, and I knew that was going to happen because it's kind of an obvious pick.
Yeah, it looks like One-Winged Angel is going to have quite an easy victory over main theme of Final Fantasy IV, but it's going to be interesting to see what, if anything, will end up stopping it in this event, because it could come up against Liberi Fatali, for example, in the quarterfinals, which would be an interesting match between the two vocal songs.
That's my prediction that will happen, but yeah, we'll see about that.
I would like it to lose, to be honest. I would really like it to lose somewhere. It's not going to lose here, because even I voted for it in this bracket. But I don't have the same attachment to One-Winged Angel that everyone else has, and I'm happy to see it not win, because my only prediction is that One-Winged Angel or Aerith's theme will take the top spot, and that is absolutely not what I want. So I want to see something else beat it, and I don't care what it is.
I funnily, as well as Kuroto, predicted the same matchup, Liberi Fatali versus One-Winged Angel in the quarterfinals. But I anticipate that One-Winged Angel will win, but will then eventually lose to the main theme of Final Fantasy VII.
Exactly,
that's
my
how I see
prediction
it going down.
Really, I'm the only one who actually predicts that Liberi Fatali will actually win over One-Winged Angel.
Again, you have to factor in that it's a Final Fantasy VII website, and there's a clear Final Fantasy VII bias. As much as I love Liberi Fatali, even I, who love that song, admit that One-Winged Angel is the better piece.
Our next matchup is one that we mentioned briefly earlier already. It's Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII against Battle with an Esper from Final Fantasy XII. This one went up today, so I haven't seen the latest results, or standings rather. Looks like Aerith's theme is beating Battle with an Esper by quite a large margin.
Shocker.
Yep. Well, at least we had Fangu to count on to vote for the Final Fantasy XII song.
Well, I voted for the Final Fantasy XII song, and I just think if you isolate them, one is better than the other. But I mean, I've voted, you can't, I've said before, I've voted for Opening Bombing Mission, even though I think Liberi Fatali is, the better song, objectively. So this is kind of being a hypocrite. But, yeah, I just don't really like this theme all that much. I love where it plays in the game, I love how it plays, and it syncs with, the materia drop and stuff. don't think it's all that special, and I don't want it to win, so please let, say, something else beat it. Say it's going to get matched up with Man with the Machine Gun next. I would like that to beat it, but I don't think it will.
I hope it won't be.
I think it will be Man with the Machine Gun, because even though it's very close with Zanarkand right now, but I feel like Man with the Machine Gun, I hope, will win overall. But I still think Aerith is going to beat it, just because, again, there is that Final Fantasy VII bias, and I think Aerith's theme is one of the better pieces in all of Final Fantasy, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I have to say about Aerith's theme that, at least for me, I've listened to it way too many times. It's just not that special anymore for me, and I have the same thing with main theme of Final Fantasy VII, really, but I have to say that I don't know about this matchup, because then again, I'm not a huge fan of Battle with an Esper, and so I'm probably gonna still vote for Aerith's team, and I know that it's gonna go on, it's gonna beat whether it's the Man with the Machine Gun or Zanarkand that's gonna go up to it, but, well, what can you do?
I really hope that Zanarkand goes far in this competition, because it's a very emotional piece for me.
I know, I agree with that.
At the moment, it's neck and neck with the Man with the Machine Gun.
In fairness, I actually voted for Man with the Machine Gun.
You didn't.
I did. But it was more of a tactical vote, because I really assumed that Zanarkand would smash it.
There's no reason to vote tactically when you're only choosing between two songs.
Well, I know, but I would like to see Man with the Machine Gun do better, and obviously I should have waited to have a look at the results and then been like, meh, but I don't like to do that either. So I like Man with the Machine Gun. If I was to pick one to listen to and not be depressed out my box, it would be Man with the Machine Gun. Rather than Zanarkand, but I love Zanarkand, but I love Zanarkand's covers more than the original. Particularly, everyone should check out a guy called Kyle Landry, who did a keyboard piano duet with another YouTuber who I can't remember the name of, and it is beautiful. This is the best Zanarkand cover I've ever heard, so everyone should go check that out.
Well, if I would be the one to decide the winner of this whole competition, I would pick Zanarkand to win, but I know it's not my decision, and I know it's not gonna beat Aerith's team. But Zanarkand, for me, it's just the best piece there is ever, and I just love it so much. It's so beautiful, and I especially love the orchestrated version of the piece. It's absolutely beautiful.
We should probably say that Kuroto is one of the few people on the Lifestream community who has a Final Fantasy X bias.
Yes.
I do too. I know I do too. To be perfectly honest, I've got a huge emotional attachment to 10. When I think of Zanarkand, I think about the ending theme. You know, how the whole score for the ending and how it's woven in there, and it really makes me emotional to even think about it. I love Final Fantasy X, and I love Zanarkand, but in this bracket, Man with Machine Gun won for me.
My bias always leans towards 6 and 8, because those are my first two, and I have the nostalgia. And I love all the music, but I mean, 6 especially will win pretty much any musical contest with me, which is why I voted so heavily for 6 throughout the music.
I also voted a lot for Final Fantasy VI in the first round, but most of the songs got eliminated, so it was more difficult from then on.
I know.
Anyway, let's move on to Words Jammed by Fireworks, also known as Interrupted by Fireworks from Final Fantasy VII, against one of my personal favourites, Terra from Final Fantasy IX.
So this wasn't really a competition, was it? Words Jammed by Fireworks. Flint, I'm sure you said somewhere that you were surprised by how well it beat a song by quite a large margin that you weren't happy about in one of the previous brackets.
It did very well in its group in the second round. It beat Via Purifico by 2-1 margin, which I was quite surprised about.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
It also beat the decisive battle from Final Fantasy VI, which has made it into the final 32, but only through a playoff with Sid's theme right at the very end.
Words Jammed by Fireworks is one of those songs that I didn't like. I would not even think about twice after playing through the game. It's a nice song. It fits the scene. It's again covers that have made me love that song. But Terra in its original form is one of my favourite songs from any Final Fantasy game. I love it. I still listen to it to this day. It's on my sleep playlist, and I'm glad it's winning, and I hope it does smash it.
100% agree with Lex. It's an amazing song. It's in my Relax medley as well. And it's just a very, very solid, very ethereal piece. Words Drowned by Fireworks is great, but I feel like a lot of the love for that song comes from the attachment to the scene versus it as a musical piece.
Eris theme.
I have to say that I agree what's been said. I mean, Words Drowned by Fireworks, it's a nice little song, but I mean, Terra is just so much better because it just has the whole atmosphere and the feeling of mystery, and it's just so much better in my opinion.
Following that, we have a all Final Fantasy VII matchup between Anxiety, also known as Anxious Heart, and one of the top seeds in this Final 32, the main theme of Final Fantasy VII.
No contest, come on.
Yeah, I feel sorry for, I mean, because I love Anxiety or Anxious Heart. I love that track. It's great, but it's going against what I consider, and what I imagine many people consider, the single greatest overworld main theme of a Final Fantasy in existence. I mean, that's no contest.
Yeah, I think that the main theme is going to have quite an easy path through the first few rounds, which unfortunately means it's going to beat Terra in the next one. But what can you do?
Now, the thing about main theme as well is that there's scene bias there too, quite strongly. The revelation, etc. Yeah, the cloud reveal at the end. However, on its own, it's an amazing piece as well. So it really does beat out quite a lot of them, and I hope it does very well in the competition.
I think that the main theme of Final Fantasy VII was the first piece of music from a Final Fantasy game that I actively sought out and listened to in my spare time when I wasn't playing the game. It's just such an epic piece. Okay, then we're moving on to the lower half of the draw. So any song that is mentioned in the next 8 brackets will only meet one of the previous ones if they both get to the final. The first one is Genova, or Genova, if you want to be precise about it, against the decisive battle from Final Fantasy VI.
I wonder how that's gonna go.
That's a very tough draw. I mean, it's two of the greatest battle themes competing, but for my money, I intend to vote for Decisive Battle because I believe that the Decisive Battle from 6 is probably the best main boss theme in any Final Fantasy. And there's definitely some nostalgia goggles there, but as far as a piece musically, it's outstanding. Genova is okay. I mean, it's great, frankly, but I think Decisive Battle will edge it out for me.
Genova for the win.
I agree with Lex. I mean, even though, like, with a lot of these kind of really main songs from the Final Fantasy VII, like, I feel like with many of them that I get bored of them, and like the main theme of Final Fantasy VII and Aerith's theme, they're okay, but I don't really want to listen to them that much anymore. But Genova is still like one of my favorites. I still love it, and I'm gonna vote for that one.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to go for Genova as well, which is a shame because I agree with JasonTandro completely that the Decisive Battle is the best regular boss battle theme in the series. It's just unfortunate that it's been matched up against the greatest battle theme in the series, in my opinion. Following that is what I think is quite an interesting matchup between Battle at the Big Bridge from Final Fantasy V, also known as a Clash at the Big Bridge, and The Prelude, which I've marked as being from Final Fantasy VII, but we're basically treating it as being from across the series.
Here's the thing about this bracket. 7's Prelude is 5's Prelude. We know that the Prelude is the same across the series, right? But it's not really. 5 was the first one to introduce a kind of the back strings after a certain point, and 7 is exactly the same. So I don't know what one I'm going to vote for because I know how much I love Battle at the Big Bridge, and I don't know if I consider 7's Prelude to be 5's Prelude, if you know what I mean. So I'm like, because if you put like 5's prelude against 6's prelude or like 4's prelude, I would vote for 5, if that makes sense, because they're different preludes, whereas 5 and 7 have the exact same prelude, so it's a tough one, because Battle at the Big Bridge I love so much. I don't know what one I'm going to vote for. I'm probably going to go for Battle at the Big Bridge, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing about this contest is that in order to avoid having many duplicates of, different versions of songs and remastered versions and so on, we've been basically treating each composition as a separate piece, even though that kind of falls down when we get to a song like the Prelude. But I'm encouraging people to vote for whatever version of the Prelude they like the best, if they are going to vote for the Prelude. But personally, I'll be voting for Battle at the Big Bridge all the way.
I have to say that this is like the one, not probably the only one, but one of these matchups where I'm pretty much happy with either choice going through. I do think I'm gonna go with Battle at the Big Bridge because it's the only song from Final Fantasy V that we have, and it is a great song. But then again, Prelude is one of those pieces that go through the series, and it's in most of the games, and it's absolutely beautiful as well. And especially as an orchestrated version, it's also very pretty. So I'm happy with either one going through, but my vote is probably going to Battle at the Big Bridge. But I might still change my mind. I don't know about that.
I'm going to vote with Battle of the Big Bridge as well. I think the reasoning is pretty straightforward, because the Prelude, while it is, it's the Final Fantasy song, it's an amazing piece. It's been remastered so many times over, and it's a very, very nice piece. But when you get right down to it, what the Prelude is an arpeggio that goes back and forth that Uematsu originally wrote in about 10 minutes. Battle at the Big Bridge is not only a great battle theme, and I'll admit I do have a bit of a battle theme bias as well, but it's also been carried throughout the series, but not as frequently as the Prelude. But I feel like what it represents, as far as, being Gilgamesh's theme, who I love, I feel like it's just the stronger piece of music if you take away the nostalgia of the Prelude. The two side by side, Battle of the Big Bridge is a better piece.
Yeah, I agree with that. I am glad that the Prelude made it this far, but I think it's far enough when faced with such an amazing piece. I just want to also comment on something Kuroto said a moment ago, which is that this is the only piece of music from Final Fantasy V in this Final 32, which I think is just a travesty. And if I'd had it my way, then we'd probably have about 5 songs from that game in here.
I was going to complain about that because I particularly like Home Sweet Home and that other Piccolo Town theme that I've forgotten the name of. Harvest, yeah, that's the one. So Harvest and Home Sweet Home I would love to have seen in the final bracket, but nope.
I personally love the main theme. And,
yeah, me too.
Dear Friends is a great guitar piece, and I think Final Fantasy V has the best chocobo piece from the series as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
With the pelvic thrust.
What do you say, Lex?
With the pelvic thrust.
Okay, if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to. Oh, that, yeah, of course.
I have to say that I agree. I mean, it's a shame that there's only one piece from 5. I also think it's a shame that there's only one piece from Final Fantasy 4, because I just love the music from both of those games, and it's a shame there's not more of those in the finals.
Yep, so I think we're all agreed that that's an interesting matchup to look out for when it's posted tomorrow. Moving on, we've got Melodies of Life from Final Fantasy IX against A Fleeting Dream from Final Fantasy X. Any thoughts?
Melodies of Life, come on, man. I mean, A Fleeting Dream is beautiful as well, but Melodies of Life is when I think of Final Fantasy IX, the first song I think of is that song. It's like that is Final Fantasy IX for me. Then A Place to Call Home, then Not Alone, in that order. All these three over the main theme, which I think is actually just mediocre. But Melodies of Life is just, not only is it a great musical piece by itself, but it's actually the first, in English, lyrical piece in the series that I actually liked. I detest Eyes on Me. I hate that song. Well, I don't really hate it, but I don't care for it that much. But Melodies of Life is just a freaking masterpiece.
I nominated Eyes on Me.
And I nominated Melodies of Life.
My apologies.
I love Eyes on Me.
I love Eyes on Me as well.
Yeah, I'll be voting for Melodies of Life. I think Fleeting Dream's the one with the weird whistly pan flute noises, isn't it? It goes.
I've always likened that to steam being released from a valve.
Yeah. No, I love A Fleeting Dream too, though. If this had been a matchup between Melodies of Life and Wandering from Final Fantasy X, I would have voted for Wandering because that song is beautiful and really underrepresented everywhere. But Melodies of Life takes this one for me.
I'm probably going to go with Melodies of Life as well, even though I
Shock.
love... well, I love Fleeting Dream as well, but I mean, I nominated Melodies of Life, plus it's the only song that made it this far. I mean, I think that's sad, because I really like songs in the whole franchise, and well, I guess this, like, for our forums, it seems to be the best. I don't know if it is, but I still love it. And I mean, in the end, it has the Final Fantasy theme, which is also kind of, I can think of also voting for that at the same time as I vote for Melodies of Life.
Did you mean that it was the only vocal theme that's got this far?
Like, with lyrics and everything.
Oh, okay. Okay. Our next matchup is an all-6 affair. It's Terra's theme, which is the overworld theme in the World of Balance, against Dancing Mad, the final boss theme.
Terra's theme, and I'll tell you why. I think Dancing Mad is shit. I don't know why everyone loves it so much. It goes on for about 20 minutes. I know everyone loves it to death, but I just don't. I don't get it. I find it horribly atonal for the first 10 minutes. Then it's like, okay, this bit's quite good, and then it's shit again for the other 10 minutes. And I know how much people love this song, and I just don't understand why. I have no attachment to it. I don't like it. And I love Terra's theme, so that'll be an easy vote for me, but I know how tough this is going to be for some other people.
I mean, I think Dancing Mad it's a great composition. I think it's a bit repetitive. Anyway, I'm gonna probably go for that one just because it is a great composition. Whereas Terra's theme, I loved it when I first heard it, but it has the same thing with Erid's theme and main theme of Final Fantasy VII for me, that it just got a bit boring. And no, it's going to be Dancing Mad.
Now, I could talk about this song, Dancing Mad, for hours on end, and I want you to know before I start on this that I loved Terra's theme as well. I think it's a great song, but I'm going to vote for Dancing Mad because musically it's brilliant. For one thing, apart from taking influence from the whole Divine Comedy for each of the 4 phases, hell, purgatory, heaven, and then, you fight Kefka as God. You have leitmotifs from the entire game throughout there, including Omen from the beginning. Then you've got Kefka's theme at the end. You've got classical influences all throughout. The Toccata and Fugue in D minor is pretty much straight ripped into the 3rd phase. And overall, just as a piece, it has such a perfect flow. It's for the same reason everyone likes the opera theme and everything that goes on in the opera, because musically is incredibly sound. Dancing Mad has all of that in one track. It's a powerhouse, and I've got it going into the quarterfinals here, and deservedly so. I think it's actually one of the best. It's in my top 10 Final Fantasy tracks.
I have to agree with you, Jason, although I can't put it any better than you did already.
You all suck. I just don't get it, guys. I mean, see if you're a person that likes Dancing Mad, there is a better version of that, recently, and it's called Almighty Bunivelse, and it's the final song of Lightning Returns. It is Dancing Mad, but an actual good version. So, go listen to that and stop being scrubs.
You should have nominated it.
No, because I like Divine Light better, and that got knocked out in its first round. So I wasn't going to nominate Almighty Bunivelse when I knew it would get knocked out within the first 3 seconds because everyone has a hatred of 13.
Excuses. We were the ones who were saying we were all going to vote for Blinded by Light earlier.
Right.
Anyway, our next matchup is, I think, quite an interesting one. It's Not Alone from Final Fantasy IX against Genova Complete from Final Fantasy VII.
I gotta lean towards Not Alone with this one. Genova Complete, you know how much I love that song. I love it more than Birth of a God. But Not Alone is one of the most emotionally charged pieces in 9, which is already an emotionally charged game.
Yeah, I just feel like it's lost something to me over the years. I said this, I think, in one of the second round. I used to absolutely love it when I first played the game, but for some reason when I listen to it now, it doesn't have the same effect. It kind of feels like it's a little bit of a parody of itself, maybe, if that makes any sense. Just maybe because I know what's coming, and it's like a film where you already know the plot twist. That's how I feel about it.
It's got the Casablanca love theme effect, is what you're saying. It's just like you know it, and it's heard, and everyone makes fun of it now. So it's kind of just you lost the appeal.
Something like that, yeah. How about Kuroto and Lex? What do you think about it?
I mean, like, it's not hard because Not Alone is going to win and it deserves to win. But I love both of these songs so much. I like Genova Complete more than other people like Genova Complete. I'm a huge fan of that song. And I feel quite sad for Genova Complete because it's going to lose.
I think it has a chance.
I think I might vote for Genova Complete, and that like is, but I don't know if I can because it's like I feel like I'm committing a sin by like I would be committing a sin by like not voting for Not Alone because I love that song so much. So I don't know what I'm going to do in this round. Actually, I really don't when it comes down to it. But I love them both. It's going to be a tough decision.
For me, it's going to be Not Alone. I don't think there's a question there. I mean, Genova Complete. I mean, just recently I started to appreciate like that song, that piece, but I still prefer Birth of a God and Not Alone. The thing is, like, the last Distant Worlds album that came out last spring, I was so happy that Not Alone was there, and like, it's just so amazing. I love this piece. It's so distinctive in the game, like the scene and everything, and I just love it.
I have one last thing to add, just as a note. I think it's interesting that the only, as far as I can see, the only final boss themes that made it into the game, apart from Dancing Mad, was all 3 of the Final Fantasy VII final bosses.
That's a very good observation. I have to say that Genova Complete is my least favourite of the 3. I know that you like it, but to me it just kind of doesn't go anywhere.
I like Genova Complete more than I like One Winged Angel.
That's because you're weird.
Isn't it? Like, isn't that the truth though? Because Birth of a God and Genova Complete spell the ending of FF7 to me, and One Winged Angel, I don't even... See, to be honest, the first time I completed the game, I'm not even sure I even noticed One Winged Angel. I just thought this is weird. And then everyone was like, oh my god, have you heard this like amazing song from this video game? And I'm like, yeah, that's like that random song that plays at the end. What's that all about? Why isn't anyone talking about Genova Complete or Birth of a God? No one cares about these tracks except me.
I'm surprised that the Extreme didn't get to the end. Everyone seems to have a love for the Extreme, but it didn't get to the 32.
Oh my god, what beat that? Like, I've just realised that that's not here, and I think that is amazing, that track.
The Extreme was in Group 1 in Round 2, and I don't know if it's because it was the first one, but it got quite a few less people voting in it than the other groups, and that made it more difficult for the songs in this group to get through. The Extreme ended up coming 5th in this group, so it wasn't even really that close since only the top 3 were going to get through.
Wow.
Which ones were the top 3 of that, or which ones got through?
Preludes and Terror's Theme got through, and The Price of Freedom was in joint third place with Listen to the Cries of the Planet, but they just missed out in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if I voted for it or not.
I'm pretty sure I didn't.
I didn't vote in that bracket. That's I missed like half of the round 2 brackets.
Yeah,
I'm
somehow.
Sure. And I know I just didn't see them on the board. Flint was like, "Why aren't you voting?" And I was like, "What? Where are the threads? What are you talking about?"
Okay, apparently I did vote for it. Well, moving on then, we've got Don't Be Afraid, the battle theme from Final Fantasy VIII, against Cosmo Canyon from Final Fantasy VII.
Cosmo Canyon all the way.
Agreed.
For me, Cosmo Canyon is probably my favorite piece from Final Fantasy VII. It just has this atmosphere that's so different from all the other places in the game, and the whole rhythm and the melody they go well like together, and it's gonna be Cosmo Canyon for me.
I'm bored of Cosmo Canyon. I don't know why. I think it's a great piece, but I'm bored of it. But I'll probably still vote for it because I do prefer it to Don't Be Afraid. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, there's really not much to say. Don't Be Afraid is an okay battle theme, but I don't think it holds a candle to Cosmo Canyon.
People do really like Don't Be Afraid, though. I mean, it got to rank 23 out of 280, and people generally say that it's one of the best regular battle themes in the series.
I like it okay. I disagree with that one. I think it's beaten out by like 10's battle theme or 5's battle theme.
It suffers from overuse of horn, which is a problem for me, I think. Like, that annoys me. When I'm physically like in a battle and I'm listening to the song, I'm like, please kill it before it gets to that part, because I just don't want to hear it. And that's why, but I love it. I think it's a great song. It's just that particular part. If there's too much horn instrument in a song, I'm like, nope, I'm done.
I think I'll be voting for Cosmo Canyon, even though it's not one of my top 10 Final Fantasy VII pieces, probably not in my top 50 or overall Final Fantasy pieces. Basically, I think that there's a better version of Cosmo Canyon, which is coming up in the next bracket. I know that people will point out that it's got significant differences, but I love The Great Warrior, and we can move on to that bracket now. I'm going to have such a difficult time not voting for Vamos a la Flamenco, but I'm going to have to do it because The Great Warrior is right up there, my very best pieces.
No! I've just noticed this bracket. How could you do this? What?
I don't get why people are blaming me for making these brackets, seeing as this is entirely based on the way other people voted.
Oh my god. That's like Sophie's choice. Like, how do you make this decision?
This
is definitely the toughest bracket for me.
I don't have that same problem here. I like Vamos a la Flamenco well enough. It's like I said, it's like the third one on this bracket on the last 32 that I'm kind of surprised made it this far. I know a lot of people like it. I consider it a mediocre piece, comparatively speaking. Of course, a mediocre Final Fantasy piece is still better than most music out there, in my opinion. But again, The Great Warrior is, like you said, it's a better version of Cosmo Canyon, and I love Cosmo Canyon and I love Great Warrior, so...
I do fake castanet clapping to Vamos a la Flamenco every time it comes on. I love it so much. I dance to it whenever I'm like digging in the Chocobo Forest. I just love it. That's going to be tough. I'm not going to say I'm going to vote for one over the other. I know The Great Warrior is fantastic and the scene and stuff, but I just don't know what one I'm going to vote for at this point.
I can say quite clearly that I'm going to vote for Vamos a la Flamenco. The Great Warrior is okay, but it just, for me, it doesn't have the same appeal as Cosmo Canyon. I don't know why. I heard it and it's like, well, yeah, it's okay, but it's just not as good, in my opinion. And, well, Vamos a la Flamenco is not my favorite, like, Final Fantasy piece, but, I mean, I think it wins for me.
What's interesting is that we could very well have The Great Warrior against Cosmo Canyon in the quarterfinals, which would be an interesting matchup.
Great Warrior would win there, surely. Like, I think it would anyway.
Yeah, you say that, but Cosmo Canyon has done better in both of the rounds that we've had so far. But anyway, there's one big obstacle, well, at least one big obstacle standing in the way of that matchup happening, and that comes in the shape of Fight On, also known as Those Who Fight Further, or Still More Fighting, the boss battle theme from Final Fantasy VII, which goes up against Final Battle from Final Fantasy X in our last matchup of the first round.
Can I just clarify? Final Battle is the kind of piano-y one?
Yes.
Yes, the very, very hectic piano one.
I don't like that song, so that's an easy choice for me. I'm not a big fan of that track, to be perfectly honest. I find it too atonal.
Yes, I agree.
That's what I don't like about it, so that won't be a difficult choice.
Atonal is not a bad thing.
Yeah, when it's used correctly, but like the whole song is atonal, so it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm listening to a song that's off key every time I hear it. I'm not a big fan.
There are parts of the song that I like, but also many parts which just sound too chaotic, too atonal, like you said. The whole thing ends up feeling quite forced. And maybe there's also some part of my brain that knows that it plays during a completely inconsequential part of the game, which I'd rather just skip.
Yeah, I have to agree, and I really like the intro, the kind of like that when it's like kind of building up. But as soon as the piano kicks in, I'm like, I don't want to hear this song anymore.
I gotta be the lone voice of dissent here. I mean, as much as I love the fight on the boss theme of Final Fantasy VII, I really do like it. I actually kind of like what the final battle from 10 does. By the way, I gotta amend my previous statement. This also made it on here, so it's another final battle theme. But I feel like it is so different. It is so unexpected for a final boss theme, because, you know, every other final boss theme you've heard up to this point has been this big, massive, overly epic affair, and then you've got this kind of simplistic, just sort of tossed about in the wind type of melody. And the piano is a very good tool for that, especially considering it matches the tone of 10 altogether. So I like it, and I feel like it has the chops to beat the 7's boss theme. At least I'm hoping it does, but it probably won't in retrospect. Or I guess in foresight or whatever. I don't know. That's not so good with the English today. But yeah, I like it. So
I have to agree with Jason, really. I mean, I'm probably going to go with Final Battle. It just... I don't even think it's really that atonal. Like, if you really go to what atonal means, which is that it doesn't really have a key, and this one clearly does. I mean, I don't think it's like, yes, it's really frantic, I think, but I do kind of love it because of that. And Fight On, I just don't really like the idea of it going so far as I think it's gonna go. But, you know, I know that people love it, but for me, it's also Final Battle is from 10. I think I need to vote for it.
Yeah, it's enough said when it comes to you.
It needs more love.
Okay, I'm just going to set a challenge for you, Kuroto, right? The next time you listen to Final Battle from Final Fantasy X, sing along to it. Do it. And tell me how much of a key it has.
I will.
When you're singing. Like, seriously, I think that's why I don't really like it. You can't kind of hum to it. It's like...
Yeah, and if you do sing along to it, then feel free to record it and send it in for a future episode of the Livestream podcast.
Hey, I still want to see Lex record himself doing the fake cast and Esteban La Flamenco. All right, man, that'd be great to have on the front page.
I'll do it on stream one day, for sure.
That just about wraps up the round of 32, the first round of our knockout bracket. So let's just close the show by talking about our predictions and preferences for the whole event. What do you guys want to see win? What's your absolute favourite song that's left in the competition? Let's start with Jason.
I don't know if it's my absolute favorite song in the competition. It's very, very tough. Like I said earlier, it's choosing between children. My anticipation is that in 4th place, we're going to have the decisive battle. In 3rd place, we're going to have One Winged Angel. In 2nd place, we're going to have Not Alone. And in 1st place, I think main theme of Final Fantasy VII is going to take it all.
That's your prediction rather than your personal preference, right?
That's my prediction.
Okay.
As far as my personal preference, I mean, a lot of the songs I would have had in the top thing aren't even in the final 32. If I had my druthers, you'd probably see songs like The Extreme, Dancing Mad. Well, you'll see Dancing Mad, but I don't know if it's going to get all the way that far. And really, that's a kind of hard question for me because, again, I love the entirety of Uematsu's works. There's not really a song that I dislike aside from one or two that I mentioned in the past. So I can't really say what I would have personally. As far as what I feel it's going to go, I think the ones that I've chosen for going to win the bracket are all good songs, and I like them all. So I'd be happy with that outcome.
All right. Let's move on to Kuroto. What do you think is going to win, and what would you like to win?
Well, my predictions are that 4th place you would have Fight On. 3rd place, Liberi Fatali. I really hope it does make it to the final 4. Then there would be 2nd place would go to main theme of Final Fantasy VII, and the 1st place to Genova. And I would not be unhappy if Genova won. I mean, actually, I would be quite happy, to be honest, because I do like that piece a lot. from 7. My personal favorite, like I said, is Zanarkand. I would choose it to win the whole thing. Also, I wouldn't be really sad to see like Melodies of Life there or Not Alone. And like I said, Liberi Fatali, I would be really happy if we went to the top 4, but and well, it isn't my prediction, so I think it's gonna do that. And yeah, like I said, I really would like Zanarkand to win, but I really don't think it's gonna do that. I think it would go against Erit's team, and don't think it has any chance to beat Erit's team. So nothing to be done, but still, vote for Zanarkand.
So that just leaves Lex. What do you think's going to win?
Let's just say top 4, okay? I think One Winged Angel is going to be first. And I really don't want it to be. I think Eris' theme is also going to be somewhere in the top 4, and I really don't want it to be. I really don't think Eris' theme should be in the top 4.
I think we've got that pretty clearly by now.
Yeah. Said it 1,000 times. I just don't want either of those songs to win. That's all I care about. I would really like to see main theme win, to be honest. I don't have a set top 4 for either, but I would like to see main theme win. I wouldn't mind if One Winged Angel was somewhere in the top 4. And I would really like to see Genova make it really far as well in the top 4. So those are the ones I really care about. From other games that aren't Final Fantasy 7. Since this is quite 7 heavy, I want to see Zanarkand make it really far, and I want to see Not Alone make it far.
Alright. As for me, my prediction is pretty cynical. It's based on the Final Fantasy 7 bias that I've observed on the live stream. All 4 songs are from Final Fantasy 7. They are Genova, the main theme, One Winged Angel, and Fight On. But if I had my way, with the disclaimer that I'm only considering the songs that are in the last 32, Genova would still win. But then the next 3 would be Zanarkand, Blinded by Light, and The Great Warrior, or something like that. There's going to be a lot of tough decisions down the road, so that might change. And with all that said, all that's left to do is thank my guests for appearing on this show. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Kuroto. Thank you, Lex.
Thank you, Flint.
No problem. Thanks to our listeners. Look out for the next episode of the Lifestream podcast proper, which will be recorded tomorrow and will probably appear in a few days' time, hosted by your regular host, Vader SW1. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
The music used in this recording was Liberi Fatali, composed by Nobuo Uematsu, main theme of Final Fantasy VII, also composed by Uematsu, and Final Battle, composed by Masashi Hamauzu. All pieces are the copyright of Square Enix.
I have to say, I mean, as far as that goes, just the melody and Melody of Life is amazing, and you can edit this out. But what's the name of the song that is the Melodies of Life, but it's just a la-la? Does anybody know that?
I know the song you mean, but I can't think of the name
The
of it.
shower song?
It's the one. It's the one that Garnet sings on top of Lindblom Castle.
The shower song.
The shower song. Oh, okay.
And Dali, Zidane wakes up and she's in the shower singing it.
I don't remember that.
What? That happens in the game, like, it's canon. It's a thing that happens. No, seriously, I'm not joking.
Well, Zidane also grabs her ass, so, there's that.
Well, he doesn't see it in the shower, but she's washing and she's singing the song, and he's like, meh.
I just don't remember there being a shower, that's all.
Oh, she's in the shower, come on. You know shit. I mean, where else is she going to be that has, like, running water? She's not in the bath.
There is, like, a little fountain thing in the lobby of that inn that they're staying at, although I've kind of thought that was a drinking fountain, so maybe she's not in there. I don't know. Anyway,
It is medieval times, they're dark.